Welcome back. I'm going to do this design surface tutorial number 1, creating a solid body from surface bodies. It's a little shovel. So far we've done the solid tutorials and the form tutorials. And solid and form both create enclosed volumes. Solid is a little more based on simple geometry, circles and lines and arcs. And forms are based on splines, right? Like the box cutter was a good example. Okay, now surfaces are they're just single surfaces or groups of surfaces, but they don't necessarily enclose a volume. That's what makes them different than forms and solids. So anyway, with surfaces you can create single surfaces, and then you can group them together, and eventually you can combine them into a component that has a volume. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to edit some surfaces and then combine them into a final volume. All right, so get started on here. And I have this thing up, and you want to go to the data browser thing and go to basic training, and it's under patch, which is a strange name, and then shovel handle only. Okay, so what do we got? We have a couple of sketches drawn in the principal planes. Okay, the primary X, Y, X, Z planes, and then we've got a couple of things that are already created for us that are just surfaces, right? They don't, or that is, no single surface will define a volume. And then we've got, if you expand the bodies, there's these two bodies in here, and they're yellow, right? So like everything's color coded. Like solids, all the commands associated with solids are blue, and if we created a form, all of the commands associated with that are purple. Now we're going to be doing surfaces, and all the commands are yellow. And so the commands are similar, and sometimes they have the same name, but they do slightly different things sometimes. So be careful and keep that straight. Anyway, the first thing we're going to do is do so we'll go to surface, create. We're going to do an extrude. Okay, and then for the profile, you're going to pick this little circle. So there's also an extrude command under the solid menu, but it creates a volume. This one won't. So there's the surface, and then the direction you want is one side, and the distance is to object, and then you click this object, and it'll extend until it intersects. So it has to intersect, and it does. And then click OK. Now if you cam in here, you'll see that the end is open. You can look inside this. So it's not a volume, it's a surface. It's still the extrude command, but because it's under the create menu, it just creates a surface, not a volume that would be under the solids menu. All right. So there's that idea. Okay, we're going to keep going and make some more solids. So we're going to go back to the surface menu, create. We're going to do a revolve and pick this thing as the profile, and then the axis, you want the green axis. Okay, this thing's a little bit buggy. I had to get in here and kind of toggle these a little bit to get it to work. I had to go back to one side. I had to change the angle around a couple of times. But eventually, what I got to work was, by changing these values a couple of times, by the way, I got it like that. So you want angle, and you want two side, and then the first angle is 10 degrees and the second angle is 190 degrees. And if you might have to do it a couple times and go back and forth between one side and two side. It's some kind of bug, but I got it to work. There's that. Okay, now we've been doing some extrudes. We're going to do not an extrude, but an extend. Okay, an extend, which is different than an extrude. Okay, it's yellow, so it applies to our surfaces. Yeah, we want to do an extend, not an extrude, but an extend. And then click this guy, and this Ooh, no, this guy, well, let me start over again. Or I'll just cancel the selection by clicking this X. So we want that, and hold down Shift and that. And then drag this stuff out, and you want 150, that. Click OK. So we extend it, not extrude, but extend. All right, now we're going to do some trimming. So modify, trim. The trim tool it's asking for. So then that's where this other arc line thing comes in. So click that guy. And it extends it kind of, the AI on this, right? The guessing what you want to do stuff is pretty cool. It extended this line so that it intersects everything that's there that could be intersected, which in this case is just part of the shovel. So it just does that for you. And then you click, so that was the trim tool. Then you click the thing that you want to trim, although it's not asking you. It's not prompting you for that, but you have to do that. So click that and it turns red. This time it did. Click OK, and then that's gone. Now let's do it again on this shaft that's poking out. So trim, the tool the trim tool is this shovel, and then it's not prompting us, but we need to know that you just have to know that you click this thing that you want to trim off. Click it, and it didn't turn red, but it will get trimmed if we click OK. And you click OK, and there it's gone. Right. So the next thing we want to do is combine these surfaces, which show up as these little orange, kind of wrapped up little, almost a cylinder thing, icons. We want to combine those four together, and they call that stitching. So you go to modify, stitch. It stitches it into a quilt. They call it a quilt, which is kind of cute. It's like my mom used to make these quilts out of little pieces of fabric. So stitching is, they call it stitch, and then they call the result a quilt. I think that's just to keep from getting sued by other software products like Rhino that they don't want to use the same commands for the same operation, so that the lawyers have something to argue about, that it's actually a different command when it's exactly the same thing in reality. Anyway, click stitch, and then you want to hold down Shift and click 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me roll around the back side. And yeah, it did. That's 4. And then click OK. And what it did was it grouped them, really. I mean, they're showing up now as just one body in the browser, but they're just like a group of surfaces. There's still no volume. Like if you right click on this thing and go to properties, the volume is 0. Okay, so we want to give it a volume. So to do that, we go to, now it's under the create menu, not modify. It's thicken. It's considered a create now. Sort of makes sense. So click thicken. Then you have to hold down Shift again and click this face, that face. No. Okay, starting over on this thicken command. Create, thicken, click this thing. Now, I started getting errors unless I change thickness to 0 first. Okay, then hold down Shift and click the rest. You also have to orbit around to get this backside, and then hold down Shift and click it. Okay, so I've got 4 objects selected at 0 thickness, and now I can add the thickness. You can type in a 2 in this dialog. Okay, so you got to be careful with the order. Just play around with entering the data in here until it's working right, and then click OK. All right, we've got something, and it has it created a body. So we still have our set of stitched together surfaces. Body, it's called body 32 sub 12. But then it made this other body called body. And first, so we got a group of stitched surfaces, and then we got a regular old body. I don't know what you're supposed to do with this whole set of surfaces. Maybe you could delete it. Let me try that. I'll just press delete. Okay, it doesn't. It's gonna. I'm not gonna delete it. I don't know. Maybe you need it because of the timeline of the fact that it's parametric. That if you change something you created earlier, it updates everything later. So you probably have to leave it. Seems a little messy to me. But anyway, if you right-click body and then go to properties, you see that it. No. Right-click body, go to properties. You see that it has a volume 1.094 or something. But if you go to the stitch set of surfaces and then go to properties, it has no volume. So that's kind of the difference between surfaces and bodies. All right, the last thing I want you to do is go up to this top level component now, right? This is the icon for component at the top. And right click it and go to physical materials, and then find this ABS plastic and drag it over here and drop it on there and click close. And then you can go back to the top level component and check properties, and it has a mass 115 now. It has a volume, but it also has a mass because of the particular property that, or the particular material, right? You'll have the same volume. For the volume is just dependent on the geometry, right? But the mass is dependent on the material as well as the geometry. So that's about it. That's surfaces. I'm not sure I'm not sure if I like surfaces that much, but there they are. All right. Have fun with that. I hope this was useful to you. Thanks. See you next time.